Welcome to our Petition Circulation Training video. Thank you for helping circulate petitions to get Dan Miller on the ballot for judge in the Court of Common Pleas. If you're watching this video and haven't signed up to Circulate yet, head on over to votedanmiller.com/petitions. It takes 10 seconds to fill out our form and we'll get you information quickly. First, let's talk about a few important dates related to petition circulation. The first date to circulate and file nomination petitions is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. The last day to circulate and file petitions this year is March 11th, 2025. That gives us the normal 3 weeks to get our petitions done. Now, let's turn our attention to a few important things to remember when circulating petitions. You have to file your nomination petitions with a completed and notarized candidate's affidavit. In lieu of notarizing the affidavit, you can also do an unsworn declaration. Of course, you must file your nomination petition pages with the required number of signatures for the office you're seeking, and you must file the original copies of your financial interests with the State Ethics Commission on or before the nomination petition filing deadline. You should also file a copy of your statement of financial interest at the local county office if applicable, and note that this is not required for federal or political party offices. If your petitions require a payment for filing, make sure that you've got the correct governing body and address on that and drop it off in person if possible, so that you can get a receipt showing it's been paid. When you're circulating petitions, it's important not to make assumptions. To start, petitions must be circulated by a registered voter. So the first thing that you should do is check your registration and make sure it's accurate. You can do this through the county website by entering some basic information, and they'll show you your registration information. If it's not correct or it needs to be updated, you can do that by filling out a voter registration form online. If you're a candidate working with circulators, anyone who circulates a petition for you must be a registered voter in Pennsylvania, so make sure you check their registration before allowing them to circulate. Any candidate wishing to secure a position on the primary ballot must file a properly completed nomination petition. In the case of the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, candidates need 500 signatures from registered voters from the respective party for which they want to appear on the primary ballot. Only signatures of voters registered of that party listed on the petition and residing within the district of the office will be counted toward the total number of signatures. So in the case of a county position like a judge in the Court of Common Pleas, the voters must be from within Allegheny County and must be registered for the party listed on the petition you're circulating. That means Democrats can only sign the Democratic petition and Republicans could only sign the Republican petitions. It's important to keep track of which petition is being circulated to which voters. It's also good to know that any registered voter of any party can circulate a petition for either party for the Court of Common Pleas. It's important to note here that details matter, and this is true related to the type of paper you're using for your petitions. Petitions must be printed on a sheet of paper sized 8.5 by 11 inches, two-sided, head-to-head. Petitions that are printed on other sizes of paper will not be accepted. The county includes QR codes and barcodes in the margins of official petitions. If you're making copies, make sure that those codes do not get cut off from your copies. One of the most important things to remember are the petition dates mentioned earlier. Petitions can be circulated only between the dates of February 18th through March 11th. Any signatures on the sheet from before February 18th or after March 11th will not be counted. Now let's talk about a few helpful tips. We call these the do's of petition circulation. Remember, always be polite, courteous, and smile when you're speaking with potential voters. Take notes if possible. If they mention a specific issue to you, offer to volunteer, or have some other comment, make sure to note it down. If you're using Vote Builder or one of the lists we've printed for you, just note that comment in the margin. When you're canvassing, try to work with a partner and stay on the same street or in the same neighborhood. Canvassing with a partner is always the safest way to go. Here's a sample script you can use when speaking to potential voters at their doors and asking for signatures. Hello, my name is, add your name here, and I'm a volunteer with Dan Miller's campaign for the Court of Common Pleas. And I'm circulating petitions to get him on the ballot for the primary election in May. Will you sign our petition so Dan can appear on the ballot? If they say no, simply thank them for their time and move on to the next person on your list. If they say yes, have them sign following the instructions we'll give you in just a moment, and thank them for their time and their support. Then ask a few follow-up questions like whether they'd like to volunteer for the campaign or whether they'd like to display a sign in their yard. You can note both of those things on your Canvas sheets or your canvassing app. Whatever they answer to those additional questions, make sure to thank them for their time and their support. On screen, you'll see a correct example of how to fill out a petition. Moving from left to right, you'll see the first box is their signature. The second box is the printed name, and this should be their full name, first and last. The next box is their house number, and this should only include the number like what you see in the example. This doesn't include any suffixes of the street name. The next box to the right of the house number is the street or road that they live on. The box to the right of that is the city, borough, or township that they live in. One thing to note here is that their township or borough may not match their physical address. For example, there are many neighborhoods around Allegheny County which use the Pittsburgh city name in their address, but that's not actually the name of their township. The example we show here on the screen is from Mount Lebanon, which uses a Pittsburgh address, but the name of the township is Mount Lebanon, and that should be used on petitions for voters in that area. Don't worry about trying to remember what they should put in this box because the correct city, borough, or township will be included on your walk list or your canvassing app. It's likely the voter will know their township, but if they don't, you'll always have it on your walk sheet or your canvassing app. The final box is for entering the current date, and you should enter the full date, which includes the month, day, and the year as shown on screen. Let's talk about a few things you shouldn't do when circulating petitions. To start, never leave a petition unattended or let someone circulate your petition outside of your presence. Never answer a question that you don't know the answer to. Simply tell them you're not sure and that you or somebody from the campaign will get back to them as quickly as possible. Jot down the question and their name and get that back to the campaign team. Remember to never put yourself in harm's way on behalf of the campaign while circulating petitions. If you ever feel unsafe, get yourself to safety if possible, or call 911 for emergency services if necessary. Never get into an argument or debate with a hostile voter. Remember to stay civil, avoid conflict, thank the person for their time, and move on. Never fill out any section of the petition on behalf of a voter. They must fill out the petition themselves. Finally, remember not to add any page numbers to the bottom of the petition pages. The campaign staff will need to do this before we turn in all of our petitions, but you, as the circulator, should not add page numbers to the bottom of any pages. Now let's talk about a few common mistakes that circulators and petition signers often make. Sometimes signers will use nicknames or abbreviations of their name. As a circulator, you should make sure that voters sign their name exactly as they are registered, and that name will show on your walk list or your canvassing application. We don't want them to use nicknames, initials, or non-diminutives like Skippy or Scoop. Oftentimes signers put their zip code in the date field because it's natural to write their zip code after they've written the rest of their address. However, zip code is not necessary for the petition. It's the date that goes in the last field. It's important to know that signatures must appear in date order on the petition. That means earlier signatures should appear before later signatures. You can start circulating on February 18th, so there should never be a situation where you have a signature gathered on the 18th that comes on the petition after a later date, like the 19th or the 20th. Make sure dates are added in date order. It's also important to note that voters cannot be registered at P.O. Box, so there should be no P.O. boxes used for addresses. Again, you'll have their registered address on the walk list or canvassing application, and that is the address they should use. Make sure the voter fills out the entire line by themselves. Do not fill out any part of the petition for them. Do not allow them to use ditto marks. One of the best ways to make sure the petition is filled out correctly is to sign your name and information as a voter in the first box up top, and to do it correctly, so that when people fill out the petition sheet after you, they follow your format and they are more likely to do it correctly. Remember not to use abbreviated municipalities. For example, Wexford is not the municipality. It's a mailing code that largely covers the township of McCandless, which is the correct municipality that should be put on petitions for people that live in that area. Again, this information will be listed on your walk sheet or application. Signers may only sign with blue or black ink, and we recommend using a ballpoint pen or some other type of ink pen that won't smear or smudge. When you've completed your circulation, whether you've gotten just one or two names or an entire sheet, the circulator must sign the petition page. If you're turning the petitions back into us in person, we recommend signing it with our campaign staff present so they can check it before you complete the petition. On screen, you'll see an example of a petition with some incorrect items. For example, on the first line, you'll notice they put their zip code in the box for the date. That's incorrect. And on the second line, you'll notice they used Glenshaw, which is not the municipality for that area. On the third line, you'll notice ditto marks to denote they lived at the same address as the person above them. Remember, do not allow signers to use ditto marks. They must enter their complete information on the line, even if they live at the same place of the person who signed before them. If you run into any mistakes, simply draw a single line through the entry, move down to the next open line, and ask the signer to do it again. We find it's helpful to place a sticky note with the current date on your clipboard, and that will help you when voters are signing the petition and asking you what day it is today. Again, make sure to use a ballpoint pen, either blue or black ink, because those are much less likely to run or smear if it gets wet. Sometimes having the voter fill out the petition from right to left, opposite of reading and writing order, helps them avoid mistakes. This makes them stop and think clearly about what they're writing rather than just writing their entire address from memory. Remember that all petitions must be signed by the person who circulates them. Again, if you're turning them into the campaign team in person, you can wait until we check the petition out before you sign it, or sign it in our presence. Also, petitions no longer have to be notarized, so even though there might be a space for that on your petition, you don't have to bother getting it notarized. If you're using the Vote Builder or Minivan application, you'll have the ability to check boxes for the names of people who signed the petition. If you have a walk list, you can put a check mark next to their name, and the campaign team will enter that information into our database later when you turn the sheets and walk lists back into us. If you run into any issues or have any questions, you can always call the campaign team. The campaign manager's information is listed here on the screen. You can also call the Pennsylvania Department of State contact line, and that information is listed on the screen now as well. If you need additional information, you can visit us at votedanmiller.com. Thank you very much for volunteering with the campaign and helping circulate petitions to get Dan Miller on the ballot for judge in the Court of Common Pleas. We appreciate your work and everything you do to make Allegheny County a better place.